We are excited to have Nishino America as our title sponsor for 2026. Nishino is driven by ingenuity and R&D, bringing innovative chemistry that works. They back every product with a customer-focused expert who knows your field and is ready to help. Stop guessing and find solutions today at www.nishino.net. Thanks again for Nishino for sponsoring the show and this episode of the Specialty Cropcast.
Welcome to the Specialty Cropcast on Pomes and Stones. Join us for real conversations with farmers, agribusiness owners, and industry experts as we dive into farming, products, and the business of agriculture, all from the people who know it best.
All right, welcome back.
Welcome back.
Where are we?
We're in the all-new Nishino Studios.
Nice.
Oh, yes, this is going to be fun. We got a brand new spot here. We're still trying to figure out what the best setup is for everybody. But, as always, to my right backward hat, Steve.
Welcome.
Hoodie Zach
Is it to your right this time? Yep.
It is for me, probably not on the camera, but. And we got Zach in the corner. And today's episode, we're going to focus on solar energy, which is probably turning into a little bit more of a hot topic. Obviously, at the Northwest Orchard Show, there was a whole afternoon about drones and solar. So I thought, we should probably have a little more conversation about that. So we're going to do solar energy, Michigan clean energy goals, and what that means for farmers and businesses. But in order to have more information on that, we have Jake Schuster here from Harvest Solar. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Welcome, Jake.
So for people who don't know you, obviously, what do you do?
Yeah, so I am a sales executive for Harvest Solar, and basically what we do is we're a turnkey solar installer. So essentially an electrical contractor, but everything's in-house. So we're with you from start to finish, from, me knocking on your door and saying, hey, can I save you some money on your electric bill, to our construction crews showing up on site, our engineers in-house. We have full-time master electricians on site. So that's really the difference, is everything's in-house with us, but from A to Z, we help save money on your electric bills.
Nice.
Awesome. So where's your educational background and how do you end up doing solar? Was there a connection to it, or did you just kind of fumble into the solar world?
I've been in this industry about 8 years now, which isn't a whole heck of a lot of time, but compared to a lot of people, it seems like honestly, I'm a senior already, so it's kind of crazy, but it seems like most people kind of stumbled into it. So I went to college at Central Michigan University. My degree was more in like recreation and running event centers is kind of what I wanted to get into, like facility management. But that kind of took a turn, and I got really run down with that after a couple of years out of school and just needed something different. And that's when I moved to Jackson, moved in with my now wife, Megan, and basically just saw a listing for a job in solar. And I saw it popping up a lot more. Everyone sees solar farms going up a lot, and I just wanted to learn more about it. So I applied for a job there and got it with a great family-owned company that was kind of in a growing stage. So kind of hit that position at a great time, to where we were about 45 employees, full-time employees at that time, running 3 or 4 construction crews. And now at this point, we're well over 100 with 8 or 9 full-time crews right now going on in Michigan. So stumbled into that, really just wanted to learn more, then the more I learned about it. Back then, we didn't have, the training we do now. It was just, hey, watch some YouTube videos and learn about solar, figuring out how much sun hours in the day and all that stuff is, a 200 amp panel in your barn and the difference in a 400 amp panel, single phase, 3 phase, just kind of learning trial by fire. But the more I learned about it, honestly, it made more sense to me. It's, especially in a lot of the ag world that we work in, we realize that there's a lot more sun than we think. You guys obviously deal with it to grow crops, but in our industry, we're just turning it into electricity to save money.
Right.
But yeah, so stumbled into it. A lot over the years, I've gotten a lot of certifications. There's a certification called NABCEP. It's like a North American Board of Certified Energy Practitioners. So a couple of things that I've kind of got along the way that have solidified what I've learned. But mostly working with agribusinesses and family farm operations to, help create a piece of, sustainability for them that might check a box. It might, just look good for them, but it also might set up the next generation to save money, for decades to come.
So does your background with what you started off after school with facility management, how does any of that play into it, or it was just a couple years at CMU just for fun?
Yeah, kind of honestly, looking back on it, kind of just for fun, but you learn a lot during that time. I wish I maybe would have done something a little bit more useful during that time, but it honestly helped open my eyes and to really led me into being a good salesman now, to be able to actually conversate with people and look them in the eyes, which, in my world, it's not like I'm, knocking on your door to sell you a vacuum cleaner or a piece of equipment. I mean, it's essentially a generator that's going to run and save you money. So it's a benefit to the customer there. So part of the facilities management aspect of it is a lot of like what I'm doing day to day, going around and visiting businesses and farms. Is I'm looking for that facility manager because they're the ones that usually know how high that electric bill is. And that really is what drives everything I do, is a bill that keeps going up and literally never ends.
Right.
So the education you said has changed a lot. I mean, it has to, because actually when I got out of the Marines in 2009, I went to college here in Traverse, and my degree is in renewable energy, electrical.
Nice.
Yep. But at that time, literally all they had us doing was wiring houses. And then we looked at a solar panel like twice for that degree.
Yeah.
And so like when I got out, I was like, I don't think I'm prepared. And I don't think it's at that point right now where I could use this. So I went back into ag. But I'm sure the education is a lot better now, and the technology.
I mean, there's, different universities and schools offer courses in it. I know, schools like Alpena Community College, they offer courses around it too, aside from the whole lineman school aspect that they offer. So it's just interesting to see. It's an evolving industry. I mean, it's kind of in its infancy, but it's also kind of not. I mean, it's been around for a long time, but it's not really, hasn't been a proven technology for very long. But you flash forward to where we are today, and there's a reason why you see it going everywhere, is because it does make sense. But really now the battle is who owns it and who's going to pay for it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Cool.
So we figured out what your role is. So what does a typical day look like, or take us through? If I were to call you, we wanted to set up like a consultation or come take a look at our, what we have on our farm. What does that look like?
yeah. So honestly, it's, what we do is really consultative. I mean, we take a look at a facility's electric bill. That's really the first step in everything, because that'll show us over the year how much energy you use. And that's really a baseline, and then from there we start talking about long-term goals. Where do you see the farm or your business within the next 5 to 10, 20 years? Are you going to expand? Are you going to maybe cut back? We work with a lot of dairies that maybe they're going to scale back a little bit. So you might want to put in a little bit smaller of a solar system. But all of our systems are designed to where you're using the energy first. So every kilowatt hour that one of our solar arrays make, you use directly, and you avoid buying from the power company during the day when the sun's out. When you're making more than you can instantaneously use, you start sending that back. So, and then that's where we start to take a look at, all right, how big of a system do you want to put in? Do you want to send any back? Depending on the power company, you might not want to send anything back to them because it doesn't make any financial sense to do it. Batteries are an evolving technology too. That's kind of a separate thing to what we do, but it's kind of all about just saving money on your electric bill. And then it's, how good of an investment it is can depend on the power company, where you're at, your physical property, if you're covered in trees and shade, or if it's a wide open cornfield, so.
How long is the payback? And there's government incentives, right? There's tax incentives. Can you go into that a little bit?
Oh, yeah.
And
and
the payback, right?
Yeah.
How long until they pay for themselves? And then are you replacing your batteries at that time?
You're good. Yeah, I just got out of a 2-day trade show, so we're in that mode. But our typical payback is about 5 to 8 years is what we see on a private project. So that's an average. It can be 10 to 12 years. It can be 4 to 6 years. That's pretty much just in Michigan. We do operate in Indiana, Ohio, and Illinois, but the bulk of what we do is in Michigan here. But typical is about 5 to 8 years. Most panels have a 25 or 30-year warranty on them with no moving parts, fluids, or filters associated with it. So it depends really on how much energy you're using. If it's $300-400 a month at your house or at your shop, it's probably going to take you a little bit longer for that system to pay off for itself. But if you've got some cold storage, or maybe you're, a greenhouse that has a lot more energy usage and you're paying a couple $1,000s a month, that's where you'll see a quicker return on it.
Yep.
So the more you're spending, the more you'll save with solar. But regardless, if you ask me, anything beats paying a bill that keeps going up and literally never ends. So,
So who do you find yourselves working with more? Is it farmers or are there commercial businesses?
I probably say we're probably more than half working with farmers. We were started by a farmer. Mark Olenek is the CEO and founder of Harvest Solar. We've been around since about 2006, 2010, and he was a farmer down in the Jackson, Albion area. So that's kind of always been our natural transition on the farm. It's just always easier to work with a farmer versus, a normal homeowner. But it's just, we've always seen that connection because we have everything in house. It's our crews, our trailers, our trucks, our post pounders that come on site versus a lot of other companies that are just subbing that work out, that it's ABC construction company, then XYZ electrician that shows up. And then next thing you know, you got 3 or 4 different companies that are kind of tying you all together there. So,
So back to what I asked though about like the federal tax incentive, right? I know there's tax incentives, but I don't really know what they are. Do you?
Yes. So
I hope so.
It's just changed. Yeah, I hope so too. Gonna get quizzed after this, but so there's 2 different sides of the commercial tax credits. Well, tax credits in general. There was residential, then there was commercial. The residential stuff all just ended at the end of last year. The administration just ended the Inflation Reduction Act incentives.
Okay.
So residential, like you putting 10, 20 panels up at your house now, there's no incentives for that anymore.
Okay.
But on the farm side, there is a 30 to 40% federal tax credit on the total project cost. So if you spend, $1 million, you're getting $300,000 or $400,000 back in a federal income tax credit, which is different for everybody. I mean, the tax game with farmers are usually, aligning it to where they're not trying to pay much in a federal income tax. So it does take some planning. But that federal income tax credit is there, and right now it's available through the end of 2027. So it is set to expire.
Okay.
That's the income tax credit. There's depreciation as well too, bonus depreciation. So just like you have on most ag equipment, you can bonus depreciate solar. So you can write that all off in the first year. There was some USDA stuff historically. There is a program called a REAP grant that's seen some good funding and some bad funding over the years. It is tied to the farm bill, so right now it's kind of all up in the air. But sometimes there are some USDA incentives and some other incentives that are out there. We work with a lot of nonprofits, municipalities, tribes, and there's a lot of stuff for those special entities that are out there that might not pay a federal income tax credit, but they can still utilize that incentive in some way. So
I feel like a casino could really benefit from a cheaper electric bill.
Right? Seriously. But they make enough money.
I know. What makes Harvest Solar different from other solar companies?
Yeah, that's a good question because honestly, there's, I think, just over literally 100 solar companies in Michigan, everything from, 2 men in a truck doing it to like the huge general contractors that are out of state subbing everything out. But really the difference is that we, like I said earlier, we touch everything from start to finish. So mainly if there's a problem, we're going to fix it, and we're not just going to finger point and, leave you up a creek at that point. Cause that's where you hear all the horror stories about solar is, hey, it worked great for a year or 2, but then something happened and, I got 10 panels up there not working, or I got a blown inverter and the installer went out of business. We see that all too often, because companies come in and then they, a little bit cheaper, and then they're out of business in a couple of years. And then it leaves the homeowner with a system that no other contractor really wants to touch. So it does kind of give the industry a bad name at points. But that's why I like Harvest, because, I could count on one hand in my 9 years of doing this, how many upset customers that we have, because we always make it right at the end of the day.
Right. Well, that answers kind of my next question is how important is it to have all of the people in-house that you guys are obviously employing, which you pretty much just explained, with the ability to finish a job start to finish without having to rely on other people's timelines and
Exactly. Sometimes, it's a double-edged sword. Right now we're pretty backed up just because we have a lot of work, but it's because we have a good reputation, and that's why we work in ag is, we do a good job for your farmer, and he's going to recommend you to his buddies, and that's kind of been successful for us over the years.
Right. So more word of mouth is where you guys get a majority of your business from, or do you think it's from
A lot of word of mouth, referrals, trade shows like crazy. We're like in the thick of trade show season right now, which makes sense. I try to get to all you guys before you disperse out into the spring and summer. Then I'm trying to catch you in the combine, but
Only Zach be in the combine.
Right.
Those beans.
What's the biggest size project you guys have done?
we've done so when I first started our biggest project, so that was back in like 2017, 2018. Our biggest project was about 1 megawatt in size. We've gradually gotten bigger. So if you look at the project that's off of M72 on the north side there on Travers, well, as you're going out towards Empire and stuff, there's a bigger, where the windmill used to be. Yeah, we built that project at Harvest. So we built some bigger jobs, but all the difference is all of our projects, you're using the energy first. We've done some bigger stuff like that for the municipality to help hit their clean energy goals. But we're not building the 1,000-acre solar farms or anything like that. There are companies that reach out to us and want to use our Michigan-based construction sometimes to build those jobs, but we're not necessarily for or against that stuff. It puts us in a tough spot. We're just all for, using solar on site where it's the most efficient and it makes the most sense and saves our customers money. So
You remember at the Orchard Show, they had the guy from Germany who was putting solar panels over his apple trees?
No.
There was a whole presentation of a guy who did that and how he had 70 to 80% of shade over his trees, but still had no issues coloring up his fruit.
really,
And so I don't know if you guys have ever done anything like that, but that'd be interesting if you could get on poles way up above everything, and then obviously spray in and not having any of it go up and over and cover it up. And
agrivoltaics is kind of the new hot word with it. It's, basically how do you incorporate solar with farming, whether it's growing crops underneath it or, going straight up and down and spreading them out so you can still fit a combine between the rows. So there's a lot of cool applications. We do a lot of, really the applications that we do are with livestock. So we'll do a raised low edge so that people will graze cattle or sheep underneath them. We have a few projects like that. We do carports, stuff like that. But on the big utility scale solar farms, they're usually not really considering that. They're just looking for flat land, unfortunately.
right. But you can find a lot of that though. And just even thinking about our farm, there's so many chunks of spots that we have cherry trees on that almost never produce, but we just keep spending all the money and doing the same program to get almost no cherries every year. It's like those are probably great spots that you
There was a
already
guy
are
there
taking care of.
from the professor from Iowa State too that we talked to and stopped by the booth, and he was just talking about which crops perform better with a little bit of shade versus full sunlight. So that's something that's becoming a lot more interesting. And I know MSU is doing a lot of testing right now and investing heavily in it to see the benefits. So or cons.
So when you say a project is a megawatt, what does that look like size-wise?
No more than 5 acres. I'd say probably 99% of our projects are no more than a half an acre if it's a ground mounted system. We do plenty of rooftop mounted stuff too. But when you look at it, it's really, some people don't like a hole in the roof. Some people don't like to look at it on the ground. If you break it down to the financials, it's slightly better to go with a ground mounted system, mainly for maintenance. You get a little bit longer warranty. It'll shed snow faster than on top of a building. So there's pros and cons to each, but yeah.
How many panels does that?
Couple hundred.
Okay.
I mean, most of them. Yeah. Even our bigger projects, like we worked with some bigger manufacturers that might put in 8 acres or something like that, but they're still using it all on site, like a huge manufacturer. We're not coming close to producing 100% of what that facility would use on the year. It's usually a drop in the bucket, but that drop in the bucket's usually like $250,000 a year in electric bill savings for them. So we do some bigger projects, but it really is just case by case because we've done some pretty large roof mounts as well too. So with an equivalent system size. So
How long does that project take that's up by the news station off of 72 to put up a project of that size?
it takes a while. I mean, those projects are a little bit different to develop, but I mean, our standard project, like at a farm or a commercial business, I mean, it normally takes probably a solid 8 to 10 months from start to finish. Most of that is red tape. I mean, it does take a minute for us to put together the designs, and make sure all that's correctly, but then we go through and we apply for local permitting. We get an electric permit, we go through the zoning. In my time at Harvest, I've only had a handful of year-long township battles. Most of the time, it's because anytime the township hears that somebody, a farmer's putting in solar at his farm, they think he's putting in 1,000 acres. So then you go to those township meetings and you just explain, hey, he's putting, 200 square feet behind his barn. then 9 times out of 10, it goes through without a problem. So we file for permits, deal with all that, but permitting through the local jurisdiction, and then interconnection with the power company. So we do work in coordination with them since you're tying into their service. It's just a application process, and we deal with all that stuff for you.
So you take pretty much care of all of the potential issues that could come up. The farmer doesn't really have to go lobby for himself at the local meetings. I mean, I'm sure they would obviously be like, hey, I'm just putting it on the side of my bar, and everyone just relax a little bit.
Yeah. And, he could be putting up a big windmill, right? Where everybody sees it and hears it. Speaking of wind, do you guys deal with wind energy at all?
When Harvest started, the H on Harvest actually used to be a wind turbine.
Okay.
We did wind and solar.
Yep.
But honestly, we moved away from wind, and we were solar only about 2010, mainly because maintenance costs, cost of solar fell. It was easier to install. So we haven't, if we run into small wind turbines these days, it's usually someone asking us to take it down and replace it with a few more panels.
Gotcha.
So Michigan recently passed, I think it was in 2023, this clean energy legislation setting some long-term goals for Michigan to have a certain percentage of our energy clean by certain points in the year. So 50% renewable by 2030, 100% clean energy by 2040. So from your guys' perspective, where you guys are sitting, how significant is that? Does that mean a bunch of more business for you, or is that mostly different types of clean energy that not necessarily benefits you guys?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a mix of both. So with that, when they passed all that, they did increase the cap of what we do. So everything we do is called distributed generation. That's the program it's under. When I first started at Harvest, the cap was 1%. So 1% of the entire utilities load could be in that distributed generation program. We were close to hitting 1% cap. They voluntarily doubled it to 2%, thankfully. And then when they passed all this, they bumped it up to 10%. So we do have a runway here it's going to be a while before we fill that 10% cap up with private systems. So it was a benefit for Harvest to bump that cap up. But if you ask, you get into just the nitty gritty of just our grid stability and all that stuff too. I mean, it's all about distributed resources. It's not having one massive solar plant in the middle of the country, powering everything. It's, taking advantage of smart resources like using rooftops, using parking lots, and kind of distributing that resource so you don't have to transmit it, halfway across the state from a huge solar farm or something like that. So the cap has helped us on the private side. It's obviously spurred a lot of huge investment in the big solar farms. So we've seen a lot of that. We see both sides of that. We get a lot of hate from that, although that's not really what we do. So we're used to it, but it's a mixed bag because a part of that clean energy goal, it's a mix of nuclear, solar, wind, natural gas as well too. So it's a mix of a lot of things, but I'll be the last person to tell anybody that we should run everything on 100% solar. But I think it's one of the most underutilized resources that is out there.
Yeah. So how does it work if it's cloudy, right? So does that affect the amount of input then, obviously, or does the solar just blast right through the clouds?
I wish. So you do get some power. On a day today's actually pretty sunny, but if you take a normal cloudy day in West Michigan, you might make like 25 to 30% of what you would on a perfectly sunny day. So you are getting something. When people tell me, there's no sunlight out at all, I'm like, well, it's outside. You see that there's some sunlight coming through. You don't need 100% direct sunlight on a solar panel. Snow's a different story though. If you have a foot of snow sitting on your solar panels and it's sunny out, your solar's not going to do anything either. So it's tough to look at it, but you can't really think about it day by day. The weather varies so much. It's crazy. But when you look at it on an annual basis, it's always within 5%. We have a terrible November, December, January, and February, and even a little bit of March up here in northern Michigan. But we have systems in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan that still hit their annual targets. So it's not so much day by day. You get some good days in the winter here and there, but some of the technology's improved over the years too that kind of help in this climate. So solar works a little bit better when it's cooler out. So when everything past like 80 degrees Fahrenheit, you start to lose efficiency. So when it's super hot out, you actually are less efficient than when it's cooler. And the panels are bifacial now too. So the backside produces energy. That's really a benefit when there is snow on the ground and your system's not covered in snow.
Does it catch the reflection off of
Yes.
surrounding stuff?
Yeah, so
Nice.
you'll produce more on a day like in February than you will in the middle of summer if you just look at daily production. So there's some things that help winter, and yeah, I'm not going to lie to you, you might go a week without seeing anything come off your system, but yearly target, it always comes in.
Do you find that people go out and clean the solar panels off? Or is it just depending on how ambitious people are? Like if like,
So-
oh, you just got a huge snowstorm, but then like this, we got a nice day. Do you think people are like, oh, I got 0% yesterday. I got to go out and get my money's worth.
Definitely some. There are definitely some of those old farmers running around brushing them off right now, or sending someone to go brush them off. But yeah, for the most part, we say don't touch them. I mean, it's not really worth it. But if you have a couple of days, you know it's going to be sunny, it might be worth it to go brush them off so you get a couple of days out of it versus one. So
Are they going to work as well on the cold weather like we have right now? I know you said hot affects the efficiency. How about the cold?
cold, yeah, they work better when it's cold out. So they like the cold, even this sub-zero freezing temps. That's why we don't do it. You see like the big solar farms that do the trackers where they move with the sun. We don't like those solar trackers because it's more moving parts, more chance for something to break, obviously. So all of our stuff is fixed. So there's nothing to really worry about maintenance wise. It's just really an electric inverter that just kicks on and kicks off. So nothing to worry about when it gets sub-zero versus, you know, too cold.
What about solar shingles?
Yeah.
Do you guys do those?
We don't. I think I'm in one of these Facebook groups. I think I saw somebody install one of the first ones recently, like last fall. So I'd be curious to see how it's holding up.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it has its applications eventually if it gets a better point. Like you think of these subdivisions that have, you know, 1 million roof points. Okay,
Right.
maybe there's an application there. But I don't know. It's an evolving technology.
Yeah, it just seems super complicated. Like you'd have wires everywhere.
How do you replace one? What if one dies in the middle? You got to rip half of them out to get
Yeah.
to it. So
Yeah, interesting.
I don't know.
Test that out, Steve.
Yeah,
Let us know.
will you give me some funding?
You're putting up a new barn. You could just.
It's up.
Oh, I already got the
up.
roof on it.
You shingle it already?
It's
Probably metal.
Get some solar.
It's metal.
Oh, it's gonna be
What
metal.
direction is it facing?
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, east and west. No bueno.
Hey, you can still make it. So good. We do plenty east and west. It's less efficient, so
Yeah.
it takes a few more panels. But
Yeah, yeah.
What's the biggest misconception you hear about solar?
I mean, the easy one is just that it doesn't work in Michigan or that it's too cloudy. That's probably the biggest one that I hear, honestly, like every single day from people. So it's just crazy to me that I still hear it. It's like I said earlier, the annual basis is the reason it makes sense, and the reason why you see the power company installing it like crazy is because they know it makes sense. Banks know it makes sense. I can't tell you how many Chase banks I drive by and see solar covered with the roof. So people understand kind of now that it makes financial sense. It's really the battle is over who owns it. You know, are we going to own it and see and value the savings ourselves, or is the power company going to see those savings and rent the savings to us until the end of time?
Do you have a hard time convincing farmers after you look at the bills to convince them that like this will pay off in a couple of years, or do they get shy about an 8 to 10 year return that they're like, don't want to do that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a mix. It's probably a mix of both. I mean, that's probably the hardest part of my job in sales is just convincing a farmer. And honestly, my job is pretty simple when I think about it, because it's just laying down, this is how much money you spend a year on electricity. This is how much electricity has been going up. It's not getting any cheaper. So this is how much you're going to spend, and just kind of getting them to realize how much money they're actually spending. Because I can't tell you how many farmers pay like thousands of dollars a month in electricity, and they don't even give it a second thought. They just cut the check or have the wife or secretary pay a bill and kind of move on to it. And it's like, you could be saving so much money, and then just how much we deal with ag and where margins are so tight, you know, with inputs and exports and every labor and everything. And it's like, this is something you can actually do to create equity into your business and save money, and to, you know, maybe, you know, put up a new building in a couple of years or do whatever with those savings.
Let's talk about batteries a little bit. So that's always been something in my mind, is like our storage capacity is just kind of limited. I mean, batteries work, but they don't have a great lifespan, and the technology is just not great. So is there any new technology you're excited about? And then talk about the lifespan of like a battery system for storage.
The technology is cool just because solar's kind of peaked in efficiency, in my opinion. You know, the panels are just getting physically larger now, but all the money and all the R&D is being put into batteries and storage, because that's kind of the missing link. You know, if there was a cost-effective battery that would last a while. If there was some perfect solution that you could pair with a solar or wind system, then you can tell the utility to kick rocks for probably 7-8 months out of the year. You still need to get through the winter, obviously. We do some batteries, but not really many. It's mainly just in residential applications. We're kind of dipping into the bigger commercial batteries right now because it's a newer market. There's company like Consumers and DTE are rolling out battery pilots right now too. So it's a newer technology that we see. You see salt batteries and a whole lot of stuff. I mean, I like the EV kind of, if they're going to be forcing EVs or if everybody has them, why can't you do a vehicle to grid and kind of use that as a battery to power your house? So there's a whole bunch of options out there for storage. Yeah, it's tough because that's really the missing piece is a cost-effective battery that's going to last, because right now they only have a 10-year warranty on it. But if you're cycling it every day, it's going to go out within 10 years.
Yep.
So, I'd like to see more of that stuff come along.
Yeah, me too.
So you're seeing more interest from growers, like at the trade shows? Is your booth busy all the time? Or do you find yourself having to go out to talk to people more?
Definitely a mix. I mean, my day-to-day is all over the place. I'm usually meeting with at least 1 or 2 people a day. But, we go to trade shows. I do some cold calling, which is just, knocking on a door. If I see a big pole barn with a south-facing roof, or if I see a grain leg sitting there at the farm, I'm going to go drop off a card. But we're definitely seeing a lot of interest, mainly just because of all the utility scale solar farms going in. That's driving a lot of really hatred, but people to look at it, and also just electric bills going up. I mean, that's really the number one reason to why I'm stopping in a farm or why people are calling us, is because they're just, hey, I'm sick of this bill. I used roughly the same amount of energy, but it keeps getting more expensive. Is there anything I can do about this? So it's becoming more known and people are realizing they can do something about it. But the trade shows, we've been going to a lot of those shows like Great Lakes Expo, Agro Expo. We go to some bigger shows like the National Farm and Machinery Show down in Louisville, Kentucky, because we do a lot of work down in that area too. So it's, a lot of everything.
All over the place. So what's your range that you go? What's your sales area?
So we're headquartered in Jackson. We have an office in Champaign, Illinois too. But me personally, I cover all of Michigan and then really all of Indiana and Ohio. It's a big territory, but it's not, it's really just talking to the right farmers and, finding somebody that pays the high enough electric bill between all of our referrals with our customers and stuff like that. So there's a lot of other solar companies, but with all of our crews in house and having an office in Illinois, it's kind of right in the territory of our swing. So Harvest historically has, we've had a sales guy in Kentucky and Tennessee over the years. So we're right here in the Midwest. But we have a system, I think, in, Western Pennsylvania. We have a couple in Wisconsin, Minnesota. So, but the bulk of it is here in Michigan.
How long does an actual solar system last?
It's a great question. When I first started, I think the warranties on the panels were about 20 years. So nowadays they're about 30 years, but built into your warranties are a production guarantee that you will be at no less than 80 or 82 point something % power by year 30. So we actually have a service team at Harvest that sits in Jackson, and they're watching all of our systems. And if your system starts dipping like way below what it should be production wise, we'll check and see if there's an issue first. But if there's not an issue, we'll check your panels, see what's going on, get them replaced for you. So they're covered for 25 or 30 years, just depending on the manufacturer. But they have a useful life of about 40 years in Michigan. And
Wow.
Most of that's based off testing. So I think our oldest system is about 16, 17 years old now, still kicking. So we'll see how long it lasts.
It's got a couple more years to go.
Right. But they're older panels too. I mean, you replace them with panels today, you're more than doubling in the same square footage too. Right. So it's like almost worth it to, replace it. But
yeah, so if someone has an older system, how difficult is it to swap older panels with the newer ones?
Depends on it's not that hard to swap panels because your components of a system, you have your modules up there, and then you have inverters for it that convert everything, from DC to AC. So there's really 2 pieces of the components. But in theory, you're just replacing electrical components. So like our ground mounts that we build, it's all steel I-beams that we post pound into the ground. So we don't use concrete footers or anything like that. It's just a post going about 8 feet deep into the ground. In theory, you could just replace the panels on that steel racking that's all galvanized and going to last well more than, 20, 30 years. So
you could just, when the 40 years or 30 is up, you could just replace it with the new hottest system and just essentially have it in the same exact setup.
That's kind of the idea, yeah.
That's nice. You don't have to redo a whole huge monster product or project.
Are there environmental factors that decrease the longevity of a solar panel?
I mean,
Hail.
yeah, yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, I haven't got the hard hitting questions yet, but the hail rate, they're all hail rated, but it's like a 1-inch diameter ball, and for basic conditions, unless something physically damages it, like I've had a customer hit it with a golf ball, a rock hits it with a mower or something like that. They're pretty durable. But it's something that all of our customers, I tell them to add it to their property insurance, because really the only things not covered under your warranty are acts of God, which are, a fire, a tornado, excess hailstorm, something like that. But if it's under your property insurance, which is normally super cheap, you're completely covered if anything happens to your
You know
system.
who shouldn't do solar would be our good friend Travis Bracci,
Oh,
who has 2 hailstorms every year, it seems like.
every year, Trev.
It's tough.
Poor-
West Michigan
poor
gets
Or
them
maybe
too.
he should try solar panels over top of his apples.
Hey,
At
it
least
might be an
barrier.
expensive way to deflect the hail, but oh man. So what kind of maintenance do people expect?
Yeah, so like I said, no moving parts. So I mean, that's why we like the trackers. Our whole idea is to take our time and do it right the first time, so we don't have to come back and fix it. Obviously, since we do everything. Really, the only thing you're probably going to have to replace is that inverter. Most of them are only covered for like 10 or 12 years, so like roughly half of the panel warranty. It's a really cheap part of the overall system, and there's a whole bunch of different kinds. You can get mini ones on every panel. You can get just one big central one to feed everything. So that's in theory really the only thing you're going to have to replace. The panels, if they go bad, we're going to know it pretty much when we're installing and testing it. So they'll last unless something physically damages it, or if it's sized incorrectly electrically over time, it can have problems. But again, that's why we have all of our electricians and engineers designing that stuff, so we know it's all up to code and gonna last.
Do you know where you guys source your solar panels from?
Yeah, a lot of our stuff right now, we use mainly Canadian solar. We use a lot of Hanwha Q-Cell, which is a Korean brand. To be honest, we kind of source everything. Nothing, well, really, it depends. There's nothing really truly made in America that people can get their hands on directly right now. It seems like over the years, solar aside, we've been pushing so much manufacturing of everything out of here that solar's included right now, that the only place a lot of installers can get them are the cheap ones from China, that are made, very in very bad ways and all that stuff.
Get them on Amazon.
Yeah, but exactly, or Harbor Freight.
Right.
You can go to Harbor Freight and buy the cheap ones too, right in
Right.
the aisles. But there are Canadian Solar Q-Cell. A lot of those companies have plants in America that have opened. So within the next couple of years, I mean, everything will probably be assembled here,
Yeah.
made in America.
Sure.
But everything, all the raw materials and stuff, is still coming from overseas.
Okay.
So,
You guys don't assemble your own panels,
No.
do you? Okay.
no, we used to do a lot of the racking and stuff in house, but no, we just pretty much source all of our components now.
So where do you see solar heading in the next several years?
It's a good question. Next several years, I mean, really what it is right now is electricity is just kind of getting out of control. I know there's a lot of heat on data centers and rate increases and what that's going to do to everyone's rates. But honestly, that's kind of been my vision, and what brought me into the industry was electricity just keeps getting more expensive. It's probably not going to get any cheaper. And I think solar is just kind of a good solution. It's not the end all be all. It's not going to be the main power source. It's not going to replace coal plants or nuclear or anything like that. But I just think it should be on, every ag shop and every rooftop that has a nice open, south facing rooftop for it. It just needs to be more utilized. But the problem is just getting people to realize the value before the power company realizes the value and wants to rent it to you. So,
Right. Do you think it's more realistic? Do you find it easier to sell to commercial places that use a lot more electricity than someone on a smaller scale?
yeah, but I mean, when I was first hired at Harvest, I was pretty much residential only. So I was pretty much only selling to homeowners when I first started. So there's two sides to that coin, because for somebody at your house, you usually know you're going to be there for a while, unless you're, in a different stage of your life where you're getting ready to move. But we look for people that were in their forever home, so you're going to be paying a bill till the end of time. Commercial business owner, it's definitely more about tax advantages, grant opportunities, what's that cash flow look like. So it's definitely a little bit different, but both of them, I'd lean more towards the commercial and ag side of things, just because, we don't really say our customers are red or blue. Like, we just see green, because it's all about money at the end of the day and saving on your bill versus paying one. So,
Right.
You brought up the data centers. It's been a big controversy in this area. A couple counties around here have put a big stink on wanting to put them in. Do you guys work with data centers much and doing
no
solar for them?
I don't know too
Because
much.
that was a big complaint, people talking about their electric bills going up, and it's something I never thought of.
Yeah, I saw the one that was talked about in Kalkaska and all over. But yeah, so I don't really know too much about it, to be honest. I mean, just kind of like everybody, I'm seeing what's out there in the news, and I just think there's a lot of questions that are kind of unanswered. I mean, working in the energy space, I understand simple supply and demand, so if you bring in a data center that uses a gigawatt of power, where's that gigawatt of power coming from, without driving bills up somehow, some way. So I think a lot of legislation probably needs to get in line around that to prevent us from essentially footing that bill. I don't know. It's tough because it's hard to stop progress. At the same time, we don't want to completely shut everything out of the state, but we don't want to be, say everyone come here, without really knowing what we're getting into. So it's tough. But again, I don't see how electric prices are going to get any cheaper going forward. So hopefully they can supply some of their own power at least.
What about the price of like a solar system? I know they're not cheap. Is that going up along with electrical prices as things move forward?
Good question.
Or like being manufactured in the United States, is that going to cheapen them? Probably not.
Probably not, I'd say, honestly. But the alternative to that is, solar is not the cheapest thing in the world, but I compare it to, if I could sell you 30 years worth of diesel fuel at $1 a gallon, this is the same thing with electricity. You're buying 30 years worth of fuel up front for a cheaper cost over time. It's not free, it's a good chunk of money. So there is some sticker shock there.
Yeah.
Forgot where your question was going at the start of that. Sorry.
Just are they going to follow the trend with electricity?
Our pricing. So honestly, our pricing was going down year over year. When COVID happened, our pricing did shoot up just because of our cost of materials went insane, especially on the electrical side. Now our pricing is going down again, but we're seeing a lot of things like on some of our government municipality jobs, we have to pay a prevailing wage, so a higher wage to our electricians and construction workers, which is a good thing.
They love those jobs.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's a good thing for them. But some things like that are kind of steadying out the cost. But historically, it's still falling over time, which is a good thing. So we're seeing that trend still as energy is going up.
Yeah.
It's hard to get things to come back down. Obviously we see it here with inputs on the farm is like once people realize that people will pay for a certain product or service at that rate, especially coming through COVID, that, why would we drop our prices back than we previously were when we could do this, whether it's costing them more to produce what they're doing, or they just realize that they can just charge more and people will still continue to pay it. Mm-hmm. So what excites you the most about working at Harvest right now?
That's a great question. I mean, honestly, probably just actually working for the right company. It sounds so cheesy even saying it, but I've seen so many greasy solar companies out there. I mean, just being honest. I mean, we call them solar bros that are out there, knocking on your grandma's door saying, hey, you're going to get a rebate, not knowing it's an actual tax credit and you don't pay any federal income tax. So that's probably the biggest stain I've seen on the industry. So honestly, I think with a lot of these subsidies going away, it's going to be helpful for our industry long term because it's going to get a lot of those short term players that were kind of just in it for the quick cash grab out of it for the long term and leave the companies left standing are they going to be the ones that have good reputations. So I'm excited about that. But just a company that actually takes care of their customers and their employees. So it's actually kind of good to see. So
what would you say to someone that's interested but still on the fence? Do you have like a one-liner you just keep saved up that you're just like, you know what? I'm going to get this guy here.
But it's tough because
it's got to be the diesel line you just hit us with. The one, the one.
I mean, that's how I get to farmers, where they start talking efficiency, and I start, a solar panel's not efficient, and I say you don't want to start talking about the efficiency of corn, and they're like, all right, yeah. So we get that, but what I would say to somebody is really, it's about long-term savings. You got to really look at yourself and realize, what's your plan. You talk about succession planning for farming, thinking outside the box and all that stuff. But what is your plan? Are you going to keep operating at this scale? Okay, well, if you are, Why are you paying an electric bill? Why are you feeding the lines of the power, or why are you feeding the pockets of the power company and not investing in yourself so you can use those savings elsewhere on the farm? So for most people, honestly, it's a matter of time, because we've seen so many people that have, called harvest a decade before I started and kick the can, and they finally do it. And it's like, it would have been paid over 6 times by now if you would have done it. Good thing you're still doing it. It's a decision that most people are only going to do it once. It's not like a vehicle that you're buying every couple of years or a piece of equipment. So it's not something that should be rushed. You want to make sure you're going about it the right way, but it makes sense long-term for pretty much everybody.
Anybody else have any?
What's kind of
questions,
the ideal location setup that you want for solar panels? You talked about north and south. Explain that to people that might not know.
Wide open.
Yeah. Facing south is the best direction. So if you're just looking at, if I'm going to fix this in one direction, permanently, facing directly south will get you the best production year round. We do a lot of east and west facing barn roofs too, because, a lot of times you're just building on the building that's there, and it still makes sense to do it. You're just talking a couple more panels to make up for it. But ultimately, harvest, we prefer a ground mounted system, but it really comes down to if you have a patch of land that's, unusable. It's not like we're filling up the back 40 or anything. Do you have a combine turnaround spot? Do you have a little patch that you're just mowing right now, or a little strip behind your tool shed? So that's ultimately what we're looking at, because that'll be the cheapest route for our customer, is something on the ground. It's easier for maintenance, longevity, replacing panels. It'll produce more energy, but also you want to keep it relatively close to where your electric meter and your service is at on the farm, because that's where we have to tie it into. So you don't want to put it 1,000 feet away. You could do it, but it's a little pricey to do that. So keeping it somewhat close to your electric service and going from there.
Why facing south? Why is that the preferred?
It's more sunlight.
Okay. Well, I'm just...
No, you're good. And the northern... The northern hemisphere, yeah, so facing directly south. If we were in the southern hemisphere, you'd want to face them directly north. So you're just trying to find the best angle for year round.
Is the east or the west better? If it's most obviously the sun rises in the east, sets in the west. Is the west side less efficient because of the heat that you could potentially get? So would you always put it on the east side of a barn if you did that?
That's a good question. I never thought about the heat aspect of it, but in a situation like that, I'd mainly just look at the farm's operation and kind of when they're using more energy, because we'll do a lot of dairies that, they'll say, hey, we do all of our milking in the morning. So they'll say, all right, we'll put more panels on the east side then, because you're going to produce more energy in the morning. Versus if it's relatively similar, we'll just kind of split it 50-50 east and west. But it really just depends on the consumption of the facility.
Nice. Is there anything else that you want to cover before we wrap it up? Did we get enough out of you?
I think that's good.
We hit it pretty good.
I know.
That was good.
Oh, this is good. This is a lot of good information. A lot of stuff that
easy,
I think a lot of people don't think about, right? Or, if you don't have a conversation with you get into misconceptions or what people hear about other experiences they've had with other companies. So it's refreshing to hear, that there's still some good folks out there that are just trying to make a good difference and help farmers save some money.
Any upcoming projects you guys have in this area?
We wrapped up a few recently. I know we just wrapped up a project with Cherry Republic out in Empire. We just did some projects in Mansalona at the schools up there.
Oh, okay.
We have a ton. We did a ton of wineries out on the peninsula, so we have a lot of stuff kind of going everywhere right now. It's honestly kind of hard to keep up with, but a lot of stuff going everywhere. So
where can people go to learn more about Harvest Solar or get in contact with someone for a consultation if they'd like to make the next step?
Yep. Give us a call, harvestsolar.com. That's our website. Just go check us out. We have a bunch of case studies too. Even if you're somebody that's just like, hey, just wants to not even talk to me, or talk to anybody, just kind of go learn more about it. We have a bunch of case studies on our websites of, if you're a pig farmer, if you're a dairy, if you're a cherry farmer, go onto our website and we have a bunch of case studies of someone that'll kind of closely resemble your operation, and it kind of gives you a good idea of what you'd expect. So
people these days, they don't like to phone call. Sometimes I'll wait until someone that goes to voicemail, and I'll text them. I'll say, hey, what's up? After I watch it go, because I'm like, I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
Talking on the phone.
Just like ordering food, I'd rather just get on my phone than place a phone call.
My wife always makes fun of me because she says I clam up like at the drive-thru if we go somewhere, and I'm like, I say what I want, and I'm like, I already forgot what she wanted, and then you toss a couple kids in there, and I'm like, oh God, what?
Just order it on my phone. Yep.
DoorDash. You don't have to go anywhere.
True.
That's a nice thing about when I moved to Traverse. I was like, wow, you could just get food delivered to your
Possibilities
house.
opened up.
And
Of
that
course, it's not the healthiest stuff that you could order to your house.
never
but,
is, right?
but sometimes you just get home and you're like, Chick-fil-A sounds pretty good right now.
Yup.
We're not associated with Chick-fil-A. All right, so we so if there's nothing else, I think we did pretty well.
Yeah.
This podcast is available on Spotify, Apple, TikTok, Google Play, Acres TV, anywhere you get your podcasts.
Google
It's
Play.
available.
It's not
I
on
believe
Google
it is.
Play.
It's not?
I think I found it on there the other day.
I think it's on there.
Yeah.
I think it's
Cast.
I think it's available anywhere you get your podcast now. So Jake, thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
thank
Yeah,
you guys.
that was
Appreciate
awesome,
it.
man.
Yeah, this was really informational, and I hope you get some phone calls or some
Oh yeah.
inquiries from this, because I think if the system's right for you, and then you should do it.
Yeah, we work with a lot of specialty crop growers too. So, I mean, it's a great fit. And we talk to a lot of people in the ag industry. So, and I don't come from a sales background. So I'm always willing just to talk to somebody and kind of shoot you straight on it. At the end of the day, I'll just give you an idea of the numbers and make a decision. It's up to you.
Sleep on it.
Yep.
And it's not only ag if you're looking at it for your house.
Oh yeah,
Residential.
we've done plenty of self storage, Ace Hardwares. Anybody that pays an electric bill that's more than a couple $100 a month, you should look at it.
Yeah. I would imagine that pays for something pretty quick if you're paying $300 a month at your house. That's crazy. All right. Well, if no one has anything else, I think we'll call it an episode. Thanks for coming in, everybody, and
See you next
we'll catch
time.
you in the next episode.
Yep.